What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. The BBC are reporting that Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party plan to woo Leave voters over the next 2 weeks in an attempt to get their votes, which is absolutely comical, as you all know. Barry Gardiner appeared on BBC Breakfast this morning speaking with Naga Munchetty about this new plan. It's not quite the car crash interview the Corbynated chicken provided us with when Andrew Neil roasted his little giblets on national television the other day, making Corbyn look like a beleaguered idiot. But in true Labour fashion, Barry talks out of his arse for 90% of this interview, and the BBC host, as usual, misses blatant opportunities to call out the obvious bullshit being spewed by the Labour Party. So I will do it for them. Let's take a look.
Let's go back to our main story now. BBC understands that with just 2 weeks until polling day, Labour has agreed a new campaign strategy aimed at wooing Leave voters.
How are they going to do that? Let's talk to the party's Barry Gardiner, who joins us now from Westminster. Good morning to you. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for talking to us this morning. How are you going to woo these Leave voters then?
Well, look, you talk about a new strategy. It's news to me. I mean, I'm speaking with Jeremy this afternoon, so I'll maybe ask him about it. But, you tend to paint things in very stark colours. Of course, you're right. We want to woo not just Leave voters, we want to woo all voters.
Now, I'm going to stop that clip right there. I swear this idiot just denied there was a plan to woo Leave voters, claiming he would need to speak to the Commissar to clarify that policy, before then admitting that they are trying to woo Leave voters. Is he even paying attention, or is his head too far up Corbyn's arse that all he hears is shit? Any sane and rational person would have just said yes instantly, because even if there is no plan, they need as many voters as possible to get elected into government. Why bother with the old I don't know about that nonsense if you want to convince Leave voters to back you? Let's be honest though, no real Leave voter is going to back the Labour policy of having another referendum, so the idea is likely a non-starter from the get-go. But it is funny that he tried to deny it, and then admitted of course that they are. Wake up, Tosspot. I know it's early, but it's not that early.
Shall we try drilling down a little bit? I'm just looking at the front page of the Times. Johnson heads for big majority. This is a YouGov poll that's been done, predicting that the Tories are going to win 359 seats, giving them a cushion of 68. Your Labour Party will secure just 211. Ouch.
Hello?
Hello? Did you hear Did you hear that? I suppose it wasn't a question.
Well,
really.
I heard what you said. I didn't hear a question, which is why I didn't reply. I thought you were going to follow up with it.
I say ouch. Do you feel ouch?
Look, of course, I want to be ahead in the polls. I want our message to be breaking through.
You're not even close to being level in the polls. You have some work to do as a party, don't you now?
Very good, and you can be absolutely sure that every day, every hour from now until December the 12th, Labour campaigners will be out there, Labour candidates will be out there getting our message across. We've closed the polls substantially since the start of this campaign. I hope we'll close them ultimately and take that lead on December the 12th. But that's our job. That's what campaigning's all about. I love it. I love getting out there on the doorstep, speaking to constituents. I love getting out there in all parts of the country and speaking to you on the media, because we need to get this message across. 5 more years of a Johnson-led right-wing Tory government will destroy the fabric of this country. That's what I believe, and I think most people believe that as well. They don't trust him, they don't believe he tells the truth, and they don't want to see 5 more years of austerity. And yet that's what the Institute of Fiscal Studies says is baked in to the Conservative manifesto.
Well, Naga points out predictions that Labour are about to get trounced at this election, which of course are only predictions, so mean absolutely nothing. But the ignorance shown by Barry, who heard what she had to say and knew that she made that statement expecting he would respond to it, just stood there in silence. Because of course she did not directly ask him a question. How pathetic can you really be? You're just wasting time if you ask me, so he can avoid awkward questions, likely because he doesn't want to end up looking like Jeremy Corbyn did the other day. When Naga Munchetty points out the Labour Party are so far behind in the polls, the chances of Corbyn being Prime Minister, based on them, leaves him in the Joe Swinson fantasy politics realm, because of course, based solely on them polls, Corbyn has less than no chance of getting a majority. Now, of course, polls are often wrong, so take them with all the salt in the Dead Sea. But this snivelling shitweasel actually sits there trying to claim Labour has been gaining ground on the Tories since the election had been called, which upon checking is complete horseshit. The Tories have been at least 10 points clear in YouGov polling consistently since well before the election was called, with the average sitting at 11 since it has literally been 11 points clear nearly the entire time, with a maximum distance being 15 points clear at one point during the last 2 months, so well before the election was called. I would really love to know where these polling numbers are coming from that claims the Labour Party have gained ground on the Tories. Sitting 10 or more points behind for months is not gaining ground, unless of course you subscribe to Joe Swinson's fantasy politics that claim the impossible is probable. It's actually amazing that he stood there lying about poll numbers before claiming Boris Johnson is a liar himself, which I'm sure is no surprise to anyone. Calling Boris a liar has been the only attack Labour have mustered since he became Prime Minister.
Barry Gardiner, your message about Boris Johnson hasn't changed since before the election campaign began, and that message isn't working, okay? So that's what this poll says. So the extrapolation from that is that the Labour Party and the campaign managers have underestimated the strength of feeling of those who want to leave the EU, perhaps, the leavers, and you've taken for granted the votes you may have had in Labour heartlands, because this latest poll, and it is only one poll, is damaging to the Labour Party and basically says you haven't got a chance in 2 weeks.
Look, let me be very specific, because you talked about the Labour heartlands. We take no votes for granted in the Labour Party. You're talking about areas which voted leave in the referendum campaign, and of course we have a message for them, and that is, if you want to leave the EU, if you want to do it, then do it in a way that does not destroy your own job. Do it in a way that does not destroy our health service. Do it in a way that Labour will put forward that keeps us in a customs union, that makes sure that we have a just-in-time supply chain for manufacturing in this country, that we can keep manufacturing going, that we can keep your jobs going. And if we do that, we can leave the European Union and you will have the final say on that. That's why we say we need to reunite the country, not just an extreme to the Brexiteer on one side, an extreme to the Remainers on the other. But try and get a compromise that works for everybody, that doesn't destroy the economy, and then put that back to you, the public. It's you that must make the final decision, not the politicians in Westminster, you, the people. That's the only way of reconciling one half of the country with the other. Let's heal the division that exists currently in our country.
So Nagger pulls him up on what I said a moment ago, that the Labour message on Boris has not changed, which is of course not working, since Labour are still miles behind in the polls. She also claims the Labour Party has ignored its heartlands who voted to leave the EU, and taken them for granted with its ridiculous Brexit position, which leads Barry to give us his stupid speech about how he will get the Leave voters on side, which, as you heard, is completely fucking ridiculous. He wants to keep us in the customs union, which removes every real Brexiteer from the pool of possible voters, along with fishermen and many others, before pitching his second referendum, to which of course alienates everyone who voted Leave in the 2016 referendum, along with a lot of people who voted Remain, but accept the democratic decision made by the majority. I really don't see how this snivelling shitweasel can actually think a second referendum will unite the country somehow. Does he really think Leave voters are just going to accept these fuckpigs, ignoring the democratic choice they made in 2016? It will cause riots pulling stunts like that, you idiot. I mean, let's be honest, the Labour Party promised to honour the result of the first referendum, so if they want to talk about trust, how can we trust them to honour a second if they ignored the first? Of course, we can't. But I will say something else. It's actually incredible, and something the BBC Spunk Trumpet should have picked up on. I swear these mainstream media hosts are beyond useless when it comes to grabbing these idiots by the nuts when they talk absolute shit. Like, what is the reason they're employed for if not to call out the blatant nonsense these people talk on their shows? But like I said, I really don't know what world Labour are living in if they think a second referendum is going to encourage Leave voters to support them at the upcoming election, or that it will unify the country. They are truly delusional, and if any Leave voter actually did vote for the Labour Party, I guess it would make the Remainers right that Leave voters are fucking stupid. Because of course, they would be following the so-called free shit on offer by the Corbynated chicken, instead of using their brain to see these blatantly obvious tricks these snakes are using to bribe voters. Take the waspy women's £60 billion debt. Corbyn is ready to spend another £60 billion in the hope of getting a few 100,000 of these 3 million women to vote for him. Because even these idiots should know it won't be all 3 million people who vote for Labour. So technically he's spending 60 billion to get a few 100,000 at most on side. Barry has no idea what he is talking about and literally talks a load of shit not based in reality. That goes almost unchallenged by the BBC. It's actually pathetic, but Barry did himself or Labour no favours with this interview. Which, speaking of, I do have some more to cover from this interview earlier on today in a separate video that will follow this one. But on that note, I will end the video there. I want to thank the channel's PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members who are linked in the video description below for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. This Parliament is a disgrace, but they're too cowardly to give it a go. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.